She arrived alone, wearing a plain beige dress that looked more suited for a church gathering than the most prestigious gala in Europe. Cameras barely noticed her. The elite whispered behind champagne glasses, smirking at her modest heels. Her simple hairstyle, her nervous smile. To them, she was nobody. Just another outsider who didn't belong. Some laughed. Others looked past her as if she didn't exist. But what none of them knew was that this so-called nobody would soon hold the key to an $80 billion throne, and their world would never be the same again. Her name was Alina. She came from a quiet village, raised by a grandmother who taught her kindness, patience, and strength, not how to impress royalty or charm the press. She didn't come for the fame or the attention. She came because of a letter, a handwritten letter that arrived just weeks before the gala, summoning her to a place she'd never even dreamed of. A place her late mother once called home, but never spoke of. Inside the grand hall, Alina stood awkwardly near the edge of the crowd. The laughter, the jewels, the flashing lights, it all felt like a world that had nothing to do with her. And yet, something was pulling her in. A secret hidden in her bloodline, a truth buried for decades, was about to explode in front of Europe's most powerful families. She had no idea that among the people mocking her was a distant cousin desperate to stop her. No one could predict that the royal family's most shocking twist in a century would be triggered by a woman in a second-hand dress. And just as the host raised a toast, a man in a black suit approached Alina with a message that would silence the room and change her life forever. But before we reveal what happened next, let's go back to where her journey really began. Alina never knew much about her mother's past. She had died when Alina was just a child, leaving behind only a few faded photos and an old locket that she always wore but never opened. Her grandmother spoke of love, loss, and a place far away, but avoided details. Life in their small village was quiet, humble, and far from royal. Alina worked at a local bookstore, lived in a tiny flat, and rarely traveled beyond her town. She never imagined she had any connection to the powerful families of Europe until that letter arrived. It was sealed with a strange gold crest. No return address, just her name, written in perfect calligraphy. Inside, it asked her to attend the Royal Winter Gala in Vienna. No explanation. At first, she thought it was a mistake. But the tone of the message was personal. It's almost familiar. Something in her gut told her she had to go, even if she didn't fully understand why now. Standing in the middle of a room filled with crowns, titles, and fortune, Alina felt like she had walked into someone else's dream. Or maybe a trap. Every glance she received was loaded with judgment, curiosity, or something darker. The man in the black suit who handed her the note didn't speak a word, just bowed slightly and left her holding a card with one chilling sentence. "You are not here by accident." Alina clutched the note tightly, her heart racing. Why her? Who sent it? And what secret had been hidden all these years? Behind the velvet curtains and polite smiles, powerful people were watching her. Some recognized her face and knew exactly who she was. Others were terrified of what would happen if the truth came out. And the truth was closer than she thought. Alina stepped away from the crowd, her eyes scanning the grand ballroom for answers. Every wall was lined with gold. Every guest sparkled under the chandeliers, but nothing felt warm. She moved quietly through the maze of whispers and stares, still clutching the note. Her breath caught as she noticed a tall woman at the far end of the room, a countess known for her icy stare and sharper words. The countess paused mid-conversation when she saw Alina, her expression freezing for a moment. Then she turned away as if Alina had never existed. But Alina had seen that flicker of recognition. She didn't know it yet, but the countess had once known her mother. A long time ago, before her mother disappeared from this world and started a new life far from castles. titles, and royal bloodlines. Back then, her mother's name had power. And her sudden vanishing left a space that no one dared to speak about. Until now. Alina reached for the locket around her neck, the one she never opened. Her fingers brushed over the tiny hinges. It had always been part of her, like a forgotten story she didn't know how to read. What if the answers were inside? But before she could do anything, a hand touched her shoulder. "Miss Elena," said a deep voice behind her. "There's someone who's been waiting a very long time to meet you." She turned slowly. The man was older, dressed in a suit that looked more military than formal. His eyes were kind, but serious. He didn't smile. And for a brief moment, Alina felt as though the entire ballroom had gone silent. Who was this man? What did he know? About her mother? And what part did Alina play in a world she never asked to be part of? The walls were closing in. Alina followed the man through a quiet corridor, away from the music and the crowd. The polished marble beneath her shoes echoed. With every step, and her heartbeat felt louder than the violin playing behind the distant ballroom doors. He didn't say much, just walked steadily, his hands folded behind his back. Every few steps, he'd glance over his shoulder to make sure she was still with him. She was, though her hands were trembling and her mind flooded with questions. They stopped in front of a large wooden door, carved with the same golden crest from the letter. The man knocked twice, then slowly pushed it open. Inside, the room was dim, lit by firelight. Heavy bookshelves lined the walls, and portraits of people with familiar eyes watched from above. At the center of the room stood an elderly man in a wheelchair. His presence was commanding, his gaze sharp. And when he looked at Alina, his lips parted but no words came out for several seconds. "You have your mother's eyes," he finally said, voice low and careful. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She'd never seen him before, but something about his face stirred a memory, maybe from a photo, maybe from a dream. She opened her mouth to speak, but the old man raised a hand. "There are things you were never told, things that people worked very hard to keep hidden," he said. "But the truth has found its way back." Before Alina could ask who he was, the door behind her opened again. Two more figures entered, both dressed in formal black. One was the Countess from the ballroom. The other was a younger man with striking features and a cold expression. Neither looked surprised to see Alina. "You were never supposed to come here," the Countess said sharply. The younger man stepped forward, eyes locked on Alina. "If she claims the inheritance, everything changes." The air was thick with tension. Alina could feel it pressing on her chest. Something massive was unfolding in. She was now at the very center of it. And just then, the old man reached for a sealed envelope with Elena's name written across it. Alina stared at the envelope as the old man held it out with a trembling hand. Her name was written in the same elegant script as the letter that brought her here. But this one felt heavier, as if the truth inside could tear something wide open. She reached for it slowly, her fingers brushing his. The room was silent, except for the faint crackling of the fire. But just as she touched the envelope, the younger man stepped forward and snatched it from the old man's grip. "She doesn't need to see this," he said sharply. The old man didn't protest. He just looked tired, like he had been fighting a battle for years, and was now too weak to stop what was coming. "I have a right to know," Alina said, her voice steady for the first time that night. "No," the Countess snapped. "You have a right to leave." But before anyone could respond, the door behind them creaked open again. A woman entered, tall, dark-haired, wrapped in a long black coat. Her heels clicked against the floor as she approached, her face unreadable. No one had expected her. The younger man's jaw tightened. The Countess stiffened. "Alina stays," the woman said calmly. "And she needs to know everything." especially what happened in 1992. Elena's heart dropped. 1992, the year her mother left, the year everything changed. The woman turned to her. Your mother didn't just walk away from the throne. She was forced out. And it wasn't because of politics. It was because of what she discovered. A long silence followed. The old man lowered his eyes. What did she find? Elena asked, voice barely above a whisper. The woman hesitated, then looked directly at the younger man. That the heir to the $80 billion throne might not be who everyone thinks it is. Gasps echoed through the room. The tension snapped. Like a wire, Elena felt the floor shift beneath her. Her mother hadn't just walked away from royalty. She had been hiding something dangerous, something worth burying, and now the truth was rising. The room felt like it had stopped breathing. Elena's eyes darted between the woman in black, the countess, the younger man, and the old man still slumped in his chair. A storm of secrets hung in the air, and she knew once the truth came out, there would be no turning back. The woman stepped forward, placing a worn leather file on the table. These are your mother's journals, she said. She kept them hidden for decades, and they prove everything. Elena opened the file with shaky hands. Inside were handwritten pages, some torn, some stained. Photos were tucked between the pages, one of her mother as a young woman, smiling beside the old man, and another of a baby. That's you, the woman whispered. But the date on the back is before the official heir was born. Elena,